Okay, good morning, people. Happy Tuesday. If you're in Vancouver, you'll notice it's nice and sunny out again, which is pretty cool. Um, Although we have class, so we can't really go out and enjoy it, at least not yet. But maybe later today, hey? Um, so Ivan's here. Hello, Ivan. Good evening to you. Benamir's here. Good morning. Tika's here. Hello, Tika. Good evening to you. Chan's here. Good morning. Duong's here. Good morning, Duong. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, Jenna. Manish is here. Was up? Nothing. Social justice. That's what's up. But good morning. Good morning, Manish. Good morning, Mashid. Good morning, Krish. Okay, so what we'll do. So today's the due date for the second micro paper, and so a bunch of you have already sent your papers to me. So thank you very much. I'm going to mark those really as quickly as I possibly can and get them back to you. And if you didn't send it to me yet, please do. Today we'll continue with sexism. We'll review quickly what we talked about yesterday, and then I have some discussion on music video to have with you. And then I have a TED Talk to share with you that's a little more either psychological or anthropological in nature. So it's a little bit, it's something different. It's something I've borrowed from my anthropology class, but it is kind of relevant and interesting when we're talking about sexism, when we're talking about inequality between men and women. But we'll get to that. So let's dive in, okay? Yesterday we were talking about this guy whose birthday it was, as it turned out. So, happy birthday to him. But unfortunately, we weren't talking about great things about his movies. We were talking about some negative aspects about his movies. And so we said that, good morning, Jimmy. We said that his films have been incredibly popular. He has been the hero, the protagonist of many films. But because his films have been so popular, that makes them agents of socialization, right? People watch them, people sort of idolize these characters and sort of aspire to be like them. And so we should pay attention to actually what those characters are like if people are going to imitate them and sort of hold them up as role models. Good morning, Monica. And what we found is that in some of his movies, we found that Harrison Ford's characters behave pretty badly towards women, right? Particularly in kind of a romantic setting. And so we saw that Harrison Ford's characters, when they were pursuing women or when they were sort of attempting to become intimate or sort of romantic with women, we found that his characters didn't listen to women's rejections. And so we saw numerous women in these films, Rachel and Princess Leia and Willie Scott. All of them backed away. They said no. They said, no, I'm not interested in you. I don't want to go anywhere with you. And yet Harrison Ford's characters kept pushing, right? Some of those female characters became angry, but of course Harrison Ford's character didn't pay attention to that. They didn't take women's anger seriously, and they were coercive, right? And so they were persistent. They didn't listen to the word no. They sort of continually advanced, and they used their physical presence and their size to kind of corner women and keep them from escaping. And that's all bad, right? That's all sort of negative, creepy behavior, and in some cases abusive, right? And so we said that in films like this, unfortunately, even though Harrison Ford's characters might be transmitting a number of positive messages, they're transmitting some negative messages about how men should deal with women. And so, particularly, good morning, Baha. Particularly, they're saying that, if you want the girl, guys, this is what the films are saying. If you want the girls, you just keep pursuing. You just keep chasing them, and eventually they will say yes, right? Because no doesn't mean no, because women don't know what they want, and so if you keep pursuing, you will ultimately get what you want. That's the message that's in these films, and it's not true. It's not true of real life. It doesn't work that way. No, no actually does mean no. And when someone's not interested in you, usually that sticks. And the more persistent you are, the less interested they will be. Um, yeah, and so it also transmits the message that women don't know what they want, right? And so their no's can't be trusted, or shouldn't be trusted, and that their anger and rejections aren't to be taken seriously, and that's a problem too, right? And the last thing we see is that seduction, so the sort of the period before intimacy, is in these films is often framed within argument, right, or within physical or verbal intimidation. Um, that's not usually part of it. People don't often fight or argue or you know become aggressive with each other and then become intimate 2 seconds later. That's not usually the way things work. It often happens that way in movies because that's very dramatic and interesting for the audience, but it's not very common to real life, and it's not really acceptable to use. It's not at all acceptable to use physical force or intimidation to seduce your person, right? And so, as a bit of a public service announcement, which maybe everybody already knew anyway, but you need consent, right? People have to freely and firmly agree to whatever kind of intimate behavior you want to engage in, right? And so, um, what we see in Harrison Ford's movies is that we don't have consent, right? He sort of goes in for the kiss anyway, even if women are in the process of rejecting him, he still goes to kiss them, right? And that's not consent, right? That's sexual harassment or sexual assault. And in the case of Rachel in Blade Runner, we get into a full on sexual assault because not only does Harrison Ford's character not get consent, but he forces her to consent, right? He basically threatens her with violence and then tells her to agree to this, which of course she does because she's scared for her physical safety, right? So this is all really, really bad stuff. And these characters are being a bad role model for young men, right? And so again, this is important. You might think, well, this is just movie, whatever, who cares? But again, it's sometimes behavior with like this is not perceived by the audience for what it is. And again, the reason is similar to the Big Bang Theory, because the film or the TV show, they frame these guys as the good guys, as the heroes, right? And so even if Han Solo or Indiana Jones, even if they behave badly sometimes, we know that they're good guys, right? They're the good guy of the movie, they're the hero. And so we kind of, because the audience knows that, we let them get away with things. But in real life, it doesn't quite work that way. Um, so what's happening here is that, you know, men are being socialized to see this as desirable masculine behavior. And so these films are, at least at the time, were the answer to the question, what is a real man like? And these films are saying like this. Now, I understand that these films are a little bit dated. Um, Blade Runner came out in 82. Star Wars, I think, was 1979. Indiana Jones movies are all through the 80s. So these films are a little bit dated, right? They're a little bit before your generation, and I get that. But what I encourage you to do, hello Casey. What I encourage you to do is think about the behavior of the male characters in the graphic novels or video games or movies or TV that you enjoy. Okay, so I know that this is dated, and a lot of you probably have never seen any of these movies, and you're questioning why we're talking about this. But I invite you to think about the characters in the stuff that you like and see how they behave, right? See how they treat women, and pay attention to the fact that in many of these cases, that the good guy is the good guy, right? And so are we letting him get away with certain behavior because we know he's good? Good morning, Erica. Okay. Yeah. And so regardless of whether the film thinks that they're the good guy or not, these men are behaving in sexist ways, right? They're using their physical and social power to objectify and to intimidate and to coerce and in some cases to assault these women. And so in doing so, they allow all these negative things to continue, right? Inequality, discrimination, misogyny, violence against women are all allowed to continue when we look at this behavior on screen and we say, that's okay because he's the hero, right? Or that's just the way things are. Okay, let's talk about music video. So there's a lot of music out there. There's an unimaginable quantity of music out there, of all genres, of all time periods, of all countries. So music is a pervasive and very popular way in which humans express themselves. And I think as far as we know, anthropologically, probably always has been. Humans have always used and made musical instruments. We've always chanted or sung or made noise of some type. So music's incredibly popular. But the particular type of music I want to zero in here is particularly pop and rock music in the West. And so again, I know that all of you come from different countries. You probably have some exposure to popular Western artists because many of them are sort of global phenomenons. I also know that you have musicians that are kind of popular within your country. Obviously, I can't speak to all of those, but I'm just going to zero in on one artist that we may know, and just as an example, okay? So let's look at Ariana Grande here and her Seven Rings song and video. And so, anyone heard this? Anyone know this song or like it or don't like it? What do you think, people? So Erica's heard it or likes it, I'm not sure. Knows of it anyway. What do you think? Have you heard this one? Baha, no? Okay. Tika likes it, okay. KC knows it, good. Loves it, okay. Hopefully I won't ruin it for you, Karen. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I ruin things, but that's okay. Rashid's heard it, okay. Anyone else? Heard it, like it, don't like it? Big song, right? Big, popular, successful song for her maybe about 1.5 years ago, I think, or so, when it was released. Ariana Grande, if you don't know, very popular pop singer here in the West. Used to be on a couple of kids shows, I think. Transitioned into a music career. Phenomenal singer. This girl can sing like crazy. She's phenomenal. But so we're gonna look at her song. We're gonna look at her video. We're not gonna sort of be criticizing Ariana too heavily here. I don't want to do that, but I do want to use the song as an example. Okay, so first thing, let's see. The first thing I want to do is look at the song itself, okay, and the social, Heard it, but don't really have an opinion. Okay, that's no problem. So the first thing I want to do is have a look at the song itself. Okay, so what is this song about? Okay, what kind of social messages are in the song? What is Ariana trying to communicate to people in the lyrics of this song? Okay. So I know I'll give you a minute or two to put this together because I know I'm just dropping this question on you out of nowhere. But here's part of the lyrics. There's more lyrics too. I think there's another verse or two, but this should do it. So social messages being transmitted in this song. What is she trying to communicate to us? What is she trying to tell us? What is Ariana trying to say in this song? So Karen's going to jump in here. So Karen says her being rich and she can get what she wants. Oh yeah, whatever. There you go. Whatever. But yeah, she can get whatever she wants. She's got money. She can buy what she wants. Ba's not heard it. That's okay. You're about to. Okay, so Karen says she's rich. She can buy whatever she wants with her money. What else? What other things are being... There's other messages being transmitted here. Some of them have to do with gender. Some of them have to do with gender. But there's more. There's more things being communicated here than just that. Karen, you're right. That's what the song is. Overall, that's what the song is about. That's very true. But there's other stuff happening in this song as well. Okay, so Karen also says there's this feeling that she doesn't need a man. Yeah, so let's see. Is there... maybe I don't know what the other verses are. So maybe there's more specific verses, but I think that's what that last line of the first verse is saying, right? It says, write my own checks like I write what I sing, right? So she's claiming that, you know, she pays for her own stuff. And so I think the implication is that a man isn't paying for her stuff, right? That she pays for her own stuff. So I think you're right, Karen. I don't know if there's anything more specific in the song, but that's very true, right? Casey says she's very confident with herself. Yeah, there's a lot of confidence in this song, right? Is that she can do what she wants, right? She's not apologizing to anyone. She's not shy about what she likes or what she can do. She's very confident in this song. Okay, so what else is in here? She's rich. She can buy whatever she wants. She doesn't need no man. She's very confident with herself. Karen says, oh, and also, and money can solve problems as long as you have enough of it. Yes, so, yeah, so she's whatever she wants, she gets, right? And money sort of solves problems. Does that okay, that's good. Manish says, I want it, I got it message shows independence and self-respect. Yeah, I guess so. So she doesn't deny herself the things that she wants, right? If she wants something, she just goes and gets it, right? And again, there's that message of independence as well, right? Which I think goes back to this, right? She doesn't need a man. She doesn't need a man to pay for her things, right? She doesn't need a man to pay for her or to provide for her. But also, she doesn't need a man to write her songs either, right? Because that last line, she says, write my own checks like I write when I sing. So she's also saying that, yes, it's her own money, but that own money comes from not only her singing, but her writing as well. She doesn't need a man to write her songs for her. She can do it herself, right, is what she's saying. Although she's borrowed pretty heavily from The Sound of Music for this song, but we'll leave that alone because we're not critiquing Ariana Grande today. We're just looking at some social messages. Okay, Ariana. So let me ask you this then. Who's the audience for this song? So who is she actually singing to, do you think? Who is this song for? We know it's written by her. We know it's written about her. We know that she is transmitting her confidence, her independence, her wealth, the fact that she doesn't need a man to write her songs or to provide for her. She's totally independent, right? There's all those there's this idea that money equals happiness, right? She's been through some tough times. She says she's been through some bad stuff, but everything's great now because she's got lots of money, and if she wants things, she buys them. So money equals happiness. That's in there too. So who is she singing to? Who is she talking to? In general, I know she's not talking to a specific person, but in general, who is her audience? Who is her audience? Okay, so Karen says youth. Yep, you're right. Ariana appeals to younger people, right? Probably, I'm gonna guess probably most of her fans are probably from 9 or 10 years old to maybe mid-20s or so. Most of her fans are. Other people like her as well, of course, but I think you're right. Most of her fans are on the young side. Because as teenagers, so probably teenagers are the most part of her audience, right? She's not writing music for seniors in an old folks home, right? It's not who her music is for. It's for youth. It's for teenagers. Everyone, well, potentially, right? Everyone and anyone can like this song for sure. Young adults and kids, so that's true. I think young adults is very correct. And even I think Ariana has some younger fans as well. But what about gender? What gender is her audience, do you think? Or who's she really talking to in this? Well, let's see what you think. What gender do you think her audience is? So Karen says females. Let's see, anyone else? Okay. So girls, young girls. Yeah. So this is, yeah. So we pretty clearly identify this as, yeah, it can, right? And she has male fans as well. But I think overwhelmingly Ariana's target audience is girls, right? And this is kind of, to me, and you might disagree with me, but to me this is kind of a woman empowerment type of song, right? And I think Karen was right before in saying, you know, I don't need a guy. I don't need to, you know, I don't need a guy to pay for me or to write my songs. I'm independent. I can buy what I want. I can buy all these, you know, nice things. You know, I can buy my hair and diamonds and, you know, fake lashes and all kinds of things that I might like, I can buy them. And so she's kind of saying, hey, girls, you can do this too, right? That's part of this, the implied message, I think, is that she doesn't need any guys. That's okay, Caleb. She doesn't need any guys to do all of this stuff for her. And girls, you don't need that. You don't need guys to do this stuff for you either. You can be independent too. That's kind of how I read this song. And again, everything we've said here is right in terms of the messages that are being transmitted. I think you're all correct. And I think, again, she's transmitting this message to particularly young women, right? Young women who she's saying, hey, I'm independent. You can be too, right? You don't need to look for a guy to take care of you. Okay, cool. Now, let's look at the music video, okay? So there's 3 questions that I want you to pay attention to here, okay? And I'm going to dump them into Microsoft Teams with the link here, okay? So I put those into Microsoft Teams. So what I want you to do is to watch the music video. Oops. What I want you to do is watch the music video and pay attention to these 3 things, okay? So the first thing is what social messages are being transmitted. So we talked about the song itself. We talked about the lyrical content, right? What was in the lyrics. But don't worry about the lyrics now. Pay attention to the visuals, right? The way that the song is imagined visually, okay? What kind of social messages do you see in the video? The second one is whose gaze is represented, okay? So this is a bit of an art history or art appreciation kind of term, gaze. So a gaze is like to look at something, right? So I'm going to direct my gaze out the window. There, right? My gaze was directed out the window. In media, what you're talking about with gaze is you're talking about whose eyes are you looking through, okay? So everything we see on the screen is shot with a camera, right? And so it's almost like we're looking through someone else's eyes. But whose eyes are we looking through, okay? So that's what I want you to do is think about, yeah, whose eyes are we looking through when we watch this video, okay? And then the third thing I want you to, and we can talk about this maybe when we come back in a couple minutes, but how do the message, not does the messages, how do the messages of the visual media align or conflict with the audio? So what I'm asking you here is, are the social messages that we just talked about in the lyrics, are they the same social messages that you see in the video or not? Okay, but again, we can deal with that one when we come back. So take 3 minutes or however long this song is. Look at what social messages are being transmitted in the music video, and then whose gaze are we looking through? Okay, so whose vision are we seeing? Who's kind of, yeah, I'll leave it there. Okay, so take 2 minutes. The video is in video is in Microsoft Teams, okay? The questions are in Microsoft Teams, and so go ahead and watch the video and then come back here in just 5 minutes, okay? So I'm gonna put, whoops, I'm gonna put 5 minutes on the clock here. I'm gonna put 5 minutes on the clock. I'll see you back here in 5 minutes, and we will we'll see what we see, okay? So go to Microsoft Teams, watch the video, and we'll come back, okay? Okay, people, and we're back after our short musical break. So, um, help me out here. What do you think? Now, we talked about social messages in the song's lyrics itself, but what about the visuals? What kind of social messages are being transmitted by the video itself? Okay, so Karen says, okay, so we see, yeah, we see lots of symbols of wealth, right? So we see the fancy champagne and we see a lot of it. We see fur coats. Everybody seems to be wearing fancy fur coats, or some people do. Um, we see lots of diamonds, I guess, as well, right? There are lots of symbols of wealth in this video for sure. What else do we see? What else do we see? Other messages that are being transmitted. Let's see. So, okay. So Casey says money solves everything. Maybe we definitely see the wealth element there, right? So in the lyrics we saw, or we read that Ariana says that she's got all this money. She earned it herself. She can buy whatever she wants. And in the video we kind of see some of the things that she wants to buy, right? Fashionable clothes, champagne, lots of diamonds, right? Lots of glittery jewels in there as well. Um, Girl fashion. Um, Let me rephrase this and maybe I can help you out a little bit. So, part of the social messaging here is defining what is cool. Okay, so Ariana's a young woman. Um, what should how do I phrase this? How how do young women who are cool, for lack of a better word, how do young women who are cool, how do they dress? How do they act? How do they dance? How do they do their hair? Um, because that's what's being transmitted, right? This Ariana is being put up there as a model of what's fashionable and cool and desirable, and she's kind of making a role model of herself. But what is she saying? What did, how does a girl who is cool, how does she act and dress and behave? How should how should young women act and dress and behave? Hmm. Okay, so all of these are all of these are in the all of these are part of what's happening here. So yes, you can get what you want if you're rich. There's money and power and respect in there. There's confidence in there. Wealth will make your wishes come true. It's true. Um, so this is a party, right? This is a house party. But whoops, let me ask you this. If this is a party, why are there no guys there? Where are the guys? I know Ariana doesn't need them to buy her stuff, but why are there no guys invited to this party? Okay. Karen says it's a girls' party. Yes. Does it look like any girls' party you've ever been to? Yeah. It's a girls' party. Does it look like a regular girls' party? Okay. Um, First, yes, I'm gonna go out on a limb and suggest that most of those girls don't go to a single sex school or to school at all at this point, but yes, yes. Hmm. Okay. Maybe it's time to take a little break and then we'll come back at this, okay? So that's what we'll do. Take a little break. Um, on the break, think about um, maybe what other what other things we're learning about girls and women in this video. Okay, so do that, and then when we come back, we'll talk about it a little more. Okay, so I'll see you in just a few minutes. Okay, people, and we're back. So, let me try one more time. So, we've got some social messages in this video, right? We definitely see a lot of expressions of wealth, right? So we see fancy clothes, we see lots of diamonds, we see people pouring champagne everywhere. So there's a lot of symbols of wealth being used in this video. But what else do we see? What else do we see from Ariana and her friends? So we've agreed that yes, we have a girls' party. We have a party with no guys. And so, not that guys need to be at every party, because we definitely don't. But kind of where I'm going with this, or one of the things I want to point out is whose gaze is represented. So whose eyes are we looking through when we see this video? It's a girls' party, right? It's a party for girls. It's a girls' house party. But is this party kind of the way that a girl might imagine or fantasize about what a girls' party would look like? Or is this a guy's fantasy, what a guy would imagine that a girl's party might look like? That's what I'm asking you. Here we go. So Karen says, this is a guy's fantasy. Karen, what makes you think that? What makes you think that this is a guy's fantasy? Or if you didn't think that and you just thought that's what I was going for, how could we support that? So what indicates to us that this is a guy's fantasy? What indicates to us that this is a guy's fantasy? Come on, people. There's 11 more of you. Give it a shot. Whose gaze is represented? Whose eyes are we looking through? Karen says we're looking at this through the eyes of a man, but how do we know? How do we know? KC says it's a guy's fantasy, but what about this video leads us to believe that it is a male fantasy rather than a female one? Well, Casey says, one, because there are no guys in the video, right? So, heterosexual guys anyway don't want to look at other guys. They don't want other guys, competition kind of ruining ruining their kind of idea of the perfect girls' party, right? So, so that could be one reason, right? Is that we have a guy's fantasy because there's no other guys, right? It's just girls. But what else? Okay. Thank you, Karen. Yes. So this is kind of what tips me off in terms of what's going on in this video. So we have a song that's about female empowerment. It's about wealth. It's about being independent and buying what you want. It's a girls' party, right? It's a girls-only party at the house. There's lots of evidence of wealth going on there, diamonds and champagne and fur coats and all that stuff. But here we have a group of really, really cute girls who are all dressed up to the nines, but they're all dancing in a very sexualized fashion, right? They're wearing sort of very tight clothes, very little clothes. Ariana Grande's skirt is really, really short. She always seems to be crawling around on her hands and knees on the kitchen island or in the closet. I don't know if she lost a contact lens, probably not. There's lots of really sexualized stuff, right? And that is not for the other girls, right? That sexualized dancing and the sort of very sexy clothing are not necessarily for girls, although we'll get to that later. I'm gonna put a star beside that because there's something else to be said there, but I'm just gonna leave it for now. And yeah, the dancing and the fashion is much more to appeal to men, right? And so we have kind of a conflict here. I think is that the song itself is for young women. It's about female empowerment, but the video itself, I would argue, and you can disagree with me here, but I would argue that video is a male fantasy. It has less to do with what Ariana might want a house party to look like and more sort of a guy's fantasy of what Ariana's house party might look like. So I would suggest that even though the song itself is very female empowerment, that the video is very much designed for men, right? It's the male gaze. It's looking at this song through the eyes of a man. And again, there are things in that video for the girls as well, right? Girls can look at the sort of the fashion and the makeup, and they can listen to Ariana sing, and the girls are dancing, and it does look fun for girls. But I think this is a video that is seen through the eyes of men, which is kind of an interesting thing, right? Let me ask you this. So Ariana Grande is an adult woman, right? I don't know how old she is, but I think she's in her early 20s, early to mid 20s. But are there ways in which Ariana portrays herself as younger? Are there elements of her fashion that are more connected to young girls? Let me ask you that, because again, she's a mature woman, she's an adult woman, very sexy, very talented, but are there elements of her fashion choices that are more connected to young girls? What do you think? And if so, what are those things? No? Okay. Here's what I think we're seeing in this video, okay? I'm going to try and fill in some of the blanks here. So here's Ariana, right? During the video. It's a video about empowerment for women. It's about women being independent and being able to financially support themselves. It's also kind of a video about capitalism, I would say, because there's lots of buying of things going on. But if we look at the video itself, it is very much targeted toward men, I would say. Again, you can disagree with me on this if you want, but this is what I'm going to suggest. It's very much aimed toward men. So there's lots of sexy dancing. There's lots of very tight or revealing clothing. Again, Ariana here is up on her kitchen island, you know, on her hands and knees, in high heels, in very high heels for some reason. And so, so a lot of her appearance, a lot of Ariana's appearance here is very highly sexualized, right? Which is interesting because the song itself is not sexy, right? If you look at the lyrics of the song, it has nothing to do with sort of sex or romance or anything like that, right? It's a song about financial independence, and yet the video is super, super sexy. The other thing that's interesting about Ariana in this video and in other cases is that lots of elements of her fashion are a little bit more designed to appeal to young girls, right? So Ariana's going to wear a lot more pink than your average mature woman would wear. She's got this kind of cat ear thing going on, which most women wouldn't wear, right? That's kind of a little bit juvenile for a mature woman to wear. The ponytail that she always has is arguably a fashion choice that more young girls wear than women, but we could talk about that. What I'm trying to say here is that she is portraying herself in a very maybe concerning, she's portraying herself in a very concerning way in which she is very, very sexualized, yet there's also elements of sort of her being juvenile, right? Of her being young, but wearing lots of pink and stuff like that. And so what I'm kind of concerned about is that we have a song about female empowerment, but we have a video that contain elements of kind of stripper culture or pornography culture, where we have lots of very sexualized dancing. Sometimes we have stripping, but not in this movie, or not in this music video, but in some. We have crawling around on hands and knees. Sometimes we have some, you know, wearing leashes and collars and things like that. And I think we would find that many of these music videos are actually written and directed by men. And so I think we have a very strange combination of a song that is about female empowerment, yet a video that is in many cases designed to appeal to men, right? And to be kind of a sexual fantasy for men. And I think this is a little bit concerning because, again, we said that Ariana's audience is girls, but particularly younger girls. And so a lot of Ariana's audience is going to be actually younger than she is. And so the sort of high degree of sexualization that Ariana is transmitting, I think, is maybe something that her audience might absorb, like young girls might absorb, but might not entirely understand what's happening. And so we could dig into this. There's a lot more to say. There are a lot of garbage trucks in my neighborhood. There's a lot more to say about this. But what we're seeing, I think, is a very problematic over-sexualization of young women. And again, it's a little bit concerning because, you know, some of Ariana Grande's fans are, you know, 10, 11, 9, 8 years old, right? And so this is a very kind of sexualized thing to present to them. And again, it kind of presents it implies the idea that, you know, if you want men to like you, you have to sexualize yourself. And that's a problematic message, I think, when you're speaking to a 9 or 10-year-old girl. And again, if she was portraying herself as a more mature woman, I think that might be okay. But her audience is younger, right? Her audience tends to be younger, and she speaks to that audience because a lot of her fashion choices are very aligned with younger girls, right? So lots of pink and cat ears and things that, maybe young girls would wear, but mature women would not. And so again, we have this kind of, I think, uncomfortable overlap between the world of stripping and sex and porn and the world of music videos and pop videos in particular. Now, normally I would go into, at this point in the course, I would go into a discussion of pornography, and we would talk about what it is, and is it good or bad, and does it send, what kind of messages does it send. But considering this is an online format and it might be kind of weird, I think I'm going to skip over that. So normally I would head off in that direction, but I think I'm going to leave it, I'm going to leave that discussion for maybe next term when the class is in person. It might be a little weird online. But instead, what I'll switch to, is this. I'm going to say that from what we've seen over the last couple days, the Big Bang Theory, Harrison Ford movies, Ariana Grande's video, is that there are kind of a thread of sexist messages being transmitted through all kinds of media, right? So we've seen misogyny, right? So we've seen lots of sexism and discrimination and hurtful or inappropriate comments on the Big Bang Theory. We've seen Harrison Ford behave in some very problematic ways toward women. We've seen Ariana Grande's video, which seems to be about female empowerment, but is very overly sexualized for a male audience. And where I kind of wanted to take this is to look at the idea of human sexuality itself and how it is thought of and how it is controlled. Okay, so this is one of those things that is buried very deeply in culture. Okay, so you'll recognize this graphic. You'll recognize this graphic. We've seen it before, and we said that in a culture there are lots of different aspects to that culture. Some of them are very easily seen and understood, and they're kind of at the surface level and have kind of a low emotional investment. But as you go kind of deeper into the culture, you get into ideas that are more unconscious, ones that are kind of less explicit, and they are ideas that people have a very strong emotional reaction to. And so if you look very kind of at the very bottom of this this diagram, you see some of the things that might have to do with sexuality, right? You have sex, you have age, you have the definition of obscenity down there. It's interesting that sexuality is not listed specifically, but it should be, because notions of sexuality and control of sexuality are very deep in culture as well. And so people tend to have pretty strong emotional reactions around discussions of sexuality. And when rules about sexuality are broken, there tends to be a strong reaction sometimes as well. Now, in the West, again, I'm going to use the West here because every culture is a little bit different in this regard, and I can't speak to everyone's individual culture. But we of course have different gender roles in every culture, and we talked about that when we did the exercise with the alien, right? The alien had come down from space, it needed to blend in, and we were trying to come up with rules for how it should behave like a man or how it should behave like a woman, right? And so those rules were all part of gender, right? They were all part of how to act like a man, how to be a man, or how to act like a woman, how to be a woman. And of course, those ideas extend to sexual behavior as well. So in the West, for instance, men are expected to be the dominant partner, right? We're supposed to be alphas. We're supposed to be in charge. We're supposed to be the pursuer, right? We're the ones that are supposed to ask women out and kind of chase them and things like that. Men are expected to be the ones, kind of the confident ones, the ones that are in control. And in many cases, it's also okay and sometimes even encouraged for men to be promiscuous. So to have numerous different sexual partners, right? What do we? Here's my question for you guys. I'm just gonna put it up here. Actually, I won't do that. I'm not going to do it. Okay. Sorry. So this is kind of in the West, this is how men are expected to behave in terms of sexuality, right? And in many cases, we encourage this. And so if you look at media, for instance, if you look at film, a perfect example of this kind of man is James Bond, right? James Bond is a cultural icon here in the West. There's, I don't know, 25 or 26 movies about James Bond. And basically in every James Bond movie, he is like this, right? He's kind of a dominant, confident pursuer of women. And he's promiscuous, right? He has lots of sexual relationships that don't really last very long, right? They last one night and that's kind of it, usually. On the other hand, we have a different standard for women, right? So on the other hand, women are expected to be more submissive, right? Not dominant. They're supposed to allow themselves to be pursued. They're supposed to submit to the control of the dominant man. But at the same time, they're also expected to be not promiscuous, right? They're not supposed to have lots of sexual partners. They're supposed to be kind of sexually reserved. And if you think about it, I'm not gonna ask you. I was gonna ask you, but I don't want to wind up with a bunch of offensive words typed into the live chat. But if you think to yourself, there are the words that we use to describe these two gender roles in terms of their promiscuousness or not says a lot, right? A guy who is promiscuous, he's a stud, he's a playboy, he's a Casanova, he's a ladies' man. All of his guy friends are high-fiving him because he's so successful with women, right? But a promiscuous woman, if you think of the words that we use to describe her, they are negative words, right? They are ugly words, and that's why I don't want you to type them in the live chat. We know what they are. And so we have a very clear double standard in terms of what types of sexual behavior are appropriate for men and for women, right? Men are, in some cases, allowed to be more promiscuous, whereas women are not, right? Men are allowed to be more sexually dominant. They're allowed to be the pursuer, whereas women are not supposed to be. And so, we have a little bit of a double standard, right? Men have fewer controls on their sexuality, and if they break the rules, the punishments are usually less severe, but women have greater controls on their sexuality. And there are often more severe punishments for breaking the rules. Now, maybe I'll ask you this. Maybe I'll ask you this before we go on. Would you would you agree with that in general? That is roughly the case, is that women's sexuality is more tightly controlled than men, and if women break the rules, they tend to have more severe punishments or consequences than men. Would you agree with that statement? Again, we have different cultures represented here, and so there's going to be cultural differences, but in general, would you agree that men's sexuality is sort of more loosely controlled than women's? Okay. So there's a few. So Karen says yes. Casey says yes. Sam says yes. Why do you think that is? Why do you think there are tighter controls on women than there are on men? You would think it might be the same. It would certainly be easier if it was the same, right? It doesn't make sense for one gender to be allowed to do all kinds of things and then another gender not to be, right? Especially when most people are heterosexual. That seems like a recipe for problems. But why do we often see that in cultures and societies? Why do we often see that there is a double standard in terms of male and female sexuality? Okay, so Karen says here, in the past, men wanted to be sure that the women that was having their children, right, and not the children of some other guy, right? Okay, that's interesting. Interesting thought, Karen. We'll come back to that, Karen. Spoiler alert. You're very much right. Sam says maybe because men can do more stuff than women. Well, they are often allowed to, right? Or at least if they do more stuff, then they, the punishments are lighter, I think. But why do we have this double standard? Yeah, this is very true as well, right? So Karen says people want women to be pure, right? So again, there's a lot of focus and importance given to women's sexual purity, right? So in many cultures, women are expected to be virgins before marriage, right? And in theory, men are expected to be that as well, but sometimes there is less attention paid to that, right? Whereas there's a lot of attention paid to women's virginity, right? There's a lot of importance there. Okay, well, to answer this and to kind of fill in this picture a little bit, this is where I want to go. I want to say that cultures always have rules regarding acceptable sexual behavior. All cultures have these. Some cultures have rules that are kind of very relaxed, and there's lots of promiscuity and exploration allowed. Other cultures are very repressive, and so the sexuality of both genders are very tightly controlled, and really sexuality is for kind of reproduction only. But again, all cultures have rules surrounding the control of human sexual behavior, okay? So this is where I want to go with this. I want to talk about this guy here. So we're going to watch a short TED Talk by Christopher Ryan, okay? And Christopher Ryan is a psychologist. He wrote this book called Sex at Dawn, and in it, he describes a theory of human sexuality, okay? And so he's talking about what is human sexuality for, okay? And so that's kind of what I would like you to watch it, and I would like you to think about basically one question is, what is human sexuality for? What is its purpose? Whoops. Okay, so I've just popped that into Microsoft Teams for us, okay? So I would like you to watch that video, and then, like I said, pay attention to those two questions, okay? Actually, it's kind of just one question. Is that what is human sexuality for? What does it do? Okay. So I'm gonna let you go and do that. The video's about 14 minutes long, and so that will basically bring us to the end of class. So what I'd like you to do is watch the video, listen to what he says about what human sexuality is for, make some notes. If you have some questions, type those out as well, because there's actually a lot in his talk. It's actually a very interesting talk. Listen to it, and then tomorrow, that's what we'll do first thing. We'll look at Christopher Ryan's talk and what he tells us about human sexuality, and what that can tell us about how we sort of regulate human sexual behavior, and again, why women seem to have more controls put on their sexuality than men. Okay, so I'm gonna end the live stream here. I want you to go to Microsoft Teams. Go to Microsoft Teams and watch the video, answer that question, type out any other questions you might have that you might want to deal with tomorrow, and that's what we'll do tomorrow. Okay, so don't forget to hand me in your micropaper if you haven't already. I think a lot of people have, so that's good. Thank you very much. Other than that, I will see you tomorrow, or I'll see you in comparative cultures very shortly. Okay, so go watch the video, answer the questions, type any other questions that you want answered tomorrow, and that's when I'll see you. Okay, so have fun. Bye.